The story begins in Oklahoma, USA. We meet a young man named Brian Newell. Brian has a deep passion for basketball and dreams of joining his school's team, the Eagles. However, he faces two significant problems: his short stature and a complete lack of any natural talent for the sport. Because of this, he was always left out, always the last one picked. The only position he ever managed to get was as the team's assistant, essentially a water boy. After helping out at yet another game from the sidelines, Brian returns home. He collapses onto his couch and immediately watches a recording of his absolute favorite basketball player, the legendary Kevin Durant. Brian studies every move, every shot, every pass. He hopes that one day, through sheer determination, he can play just like his idol. This hope fuels him, and he trains every single day at his home, practicing in his driveway. But the young man simply has no knack for it. His movements are clumsy, and his shots are terrible. He can barely make a basket even when standing at close range. The ball bounces awkwardly off the rim or misses the backboard entirely. His efforts are so hopeless that even Ashley, his younger sister, finds it hilarious. She often records her brother's training sessions on her phone, not to be supportive, but just to mock his complete lack of talent. One morning, the young man goes to another day of school. As he walks through the hallway, he meets Isabel, a new student at the school. For Brian, it is an immediate case of love at first sight. He is completely captivated. During lunch, he finds out from Mitch, his best friend, that the young woman just moved to town a few days ago. Mitch encourages him to go and talk to her. Gathering all the courage he can find, Brian straightens his shirt and walks over to her table, ready to introduce himself. But before he can even say a single word, Connor, the arrogant captain of the Eagles, spots him. Connor smirks and points everyone's attention to the cafeteria TV screens. He plays a recording for the whole school to see. In the video, Brian appears in his backyard, training. He tries to jump toward the basket by using a trampoline, hoping to finally dunk the ball. However, the foolish attempt goes horribly wrong. The fool ends up jumping far too high, crashing hard, and falls right on top of the basket, where he hangs upside down, stuck and helpless. The entire cafeteria erupts in laughter. Because of this, Brian becomes the butt of all the jokes. Mortified, he gives up on talking to Isabel and quickly leaves the cafeteria. Later, the young man is in his room, feeling completely embarrassed and humiliated by what happened. His father, Joe, sees how down he is and tries to cheer him up. He invites Brian to watch a game of his favorite team, the Thunder. Brian doesn't think twice. The chance to see Kevin Durant play in person is a dream come true. He goes with his father to the arena, hoping to see Kevin dominate on the court. Once they arrive and find their seats, the game begins. The Thunder play against the Detroit Pistons. And thanks to Kevin's incredible skill, the Thunder take a massive lead in the first half with a score of 61-37. Kevin is playing like a superstar. During halftime, the stadium team organizes a contest for the fans. One lucky person from the audience will have the chance to shoot a basket from the middle of the court. Whoever is chosen and scores the point will win $20,000. The mascot scans the crowd, and to Brian's absolute astonishment, he is the one chosen. His heart pounds in his chest. He is then taken down to the court to begin the challenge. As he stands there, shaking in front of thousands of people, Kevin Durant himself walks over to watch. Brian prepares to shoot the ball, but in another part of the stands, he hears a familiar voice. It's Connor, who begins to mock the young man, shouting that he won't be able to do it. This only makes Brian even more nervous, his hands sweating. He gathers all his strength and throws the ball toward the basket. Unfortunately, the shot is terrible. It misses the basket by a wide margin and flies into the crowd, hitting Rumble, the Thunder's mascot, right on the head. The mascot collapses to the ground. Brian is once again embarrassed, this time in front of his hero. He missed his chance. Dejected, he starts to walk back to the stands, but on his way, he meets his idol, Kevin Durant. In a wonderful act of generosity, the player signs the ball and gives it to Brian, telling him to keep practicing and never give up. The young man is incredibly happy about this. He tells Kevin that he would like to be as good as him one day. The player responds with some wisdom, saying that when talent doesn't work for you, you have to work to achieve talent. Brian thanks him for the advice and takes the ball back. As their hands touch the ball at the same time, a strange, unseen electromagnetic energy passes from Kevin to the young man. Both of them feel a strange sensation, like a small shock, but they think it was just their imagination or static electricity. Brian, holding his new autographed ball, returns to the stands. The next day, the young man wakes up to the sound of the radio. The sports news is reporting that the Thunder lost to the Detroit Pistons in a historic comeback. Apparently, Kevin Durant returned to the second half unable to play properly. He missed all his shots, all his passes, and played terribly. Despite this strange news, Brian is happy to have met his idol and received an autographed ball. He gets ready for another day of school and goes to the bathroom to change. Without even thinking about it, he makes a perfect throw and shoots his dirty clothes straight into the laundry basket from across the room. He pauses, surprised, but thinks nothing of it. During science class, more strange things happen. Brian goes to analyze a model of the human body. Mitch tells him that Connor recorded Brian's failed shot of the Thunder game and has already spread the new embarrassing video throughout the school. Brian feels even more embarrassed. Without meaning to, he picks up the model's liver and, with just one finger, he starts spinning it perfectly on his fingertip, like a professional basketball player. The two young men find this incredibly strange. Brian soon realizes that he can spin anything with his fingers. That night, he goes with Ashley and Mitch to the local park. They find Isabel standing next to Connor at a carnival tent with basketball hoops. The challenge is to hit one of them to win a panda stuffed animal. Connor tries to impress Isabel, but he misses every single shot. Brian starts laughing at the team captain, who doesn't like it at all. Connor challenges Brian to prove he can do better. Brian accepts the challenge, and Connor is sure he will miss. But instead, the young man shoots the ball, and it goes perfectly into the basket. Connor is stunned. Not satisfied, he doubles the bet. But just like the first time, Brian makes all the shots easily and wins the giant panda for Isabel. Feeling completely humiliated, Connor storms off. Isabel thanks Brian for the kind gesture, and Brian invites her to spend the day at the park with him. Things finally seem to be looking up for Brian. While Brian's life is getting better, Kevin Durant's situation is getting much worse. During a private training session with Alan, his manager, Kevin misses every single shot he takes. He tries to justify himself, believing he is just going through a bad phase or a slump. Little does he know that his basketball talent somehow, magically, passed on to Brian during the halftime break in the previous game. With no idea what truly happened, Brian takes advantage of his new abilities. He goes back to practicing in his backyard, but this time, he makes every single shot. He can even dunk the ball easily, without needing the trampoline. Confident that he has finally found his talent, Brian goes to the school court. He finds Coach Ambrose and asks to join the team. The coach says there are no openings. Connor, standing nearby, tells Brian to leave. He says Brian is just a team assistant who is not good at sports. Even so, the new Brian is not intimidated. He challenges Connor to a one-on-one game to prove who is the best player. The young captain accepts, ready to humiliate Brian again. But as soon as the contest begins, Brian steals the ball with lightning speed and scores a perfect basket. Connor persists and tries to score a point, but Brian defends perfectly and manages to block his shot. Impressed by the young man's sudden and unbelievable talent, the coach and his assistant, Dan, challenge Brian together. They play 2-on-1, but the young man easily dodges them both and dunks the ball hard in the basket, leaving everyone in the gym completely impressed and speechless. Thanks to this incredible display, Brian is immediately accepted onto the team. He is called up to play in the Eagles' first game in the State Cup. Before the game starts, Brian looks into the stands. He sees Isabel, Mitch, and his family all watching him. He can barely control his nervousness. But as soon as the game starts, the young man takes possession of the ball. He makes a quick, perfect pass to one of his teammates, who manages to score a point for the Eagles. In another attack, Brian asks for the ball, but Connor, jealous, tries an individual play. He ignores Brian, and not only does he lose the ball, but he gives the rival team a chance to tie the game. Coach Ambrose is furious. He yells at Connor and orders him to pass the ball to Brian. The captain is forced to obey. With the game coming to an end and the score tied, Brian receives the pass. He jumps high into the air, and with a powerful move, he slams the ball into the basket, scoring the winning point at the buzzer. Thanks to his performance, Brian becomes a regular starter on the team. In no time at all, he becomes the new sensation of the school. Later, he goes to celebrate with Mitch at a go-kart track. There, he meets Isabel in the middle of a race. Without hesitation, Brian speeds up, expertly navigating the track until he catches up with her. She is happy to see him again. She then challenges him to a race to see who will pay for their snacks. Brian accepts. But the young man, now overflowing with confidence, ends up getting distracted by showing off. He crashes his cart into a wall of tires. While Brian is at his best, Kevin Durant goes from bad to worse. His career in sports is suddenly facing one of the worst slumps in recent years. He can't do anything right. Even when he tries to shoot a simple commercial for his new brand of sneakers, the player misses all his shots. He even trips over his own feet in the middle of the court. All of this only makes his agent, Alan, even more concerned and panicked. On television, sports journalists are questioning if this is the end of Kevin's career. Suddenly, while flipping through the channels, Alan sees a local news story. It's about Brian, the young player from Oklahoma who has become one of the most promising high school basketball players in the state. Alan remembers the young man from the game, the one who missed the half-court shot so badly. He doubts that this kid could suddenly have all that talent. Furthermore, when watching recordings of Brian's school games, the agent notices a striking resemblance. Brian's new moves, his dunks, his passes, they look exactly like Kevin Durant's signature style. Alan decides to investigate the young man further. The next day, Alan goes to talk to Kevin. He presents his wild theory. He believes Kevin's talent has been magically passed on to Brian, the young man to whom he gave the autographed ball. Kevin, of course, doesn't believe a word of it. He thinks it's ridiculous. But Alan believes it's the only possible explanation. Since that exact day, Kevin lost his talent, while Brian, a kid with no skill, suddenly became the best player in Oklahoma. To prove his theory, Alan decides to follow Brian. He finds him at a local diner, on a date with Isabel. The man then interrupts the young couple. He introduces himself as Kevin Durant's agent and says he wants to arrange a special visit by the player to Brian's school. Brian is incredibly excited about this. Alan then calls Kevin, saying he is organizing a charity campaign at the young man's school as a cover story. When Kevin arrives, the player says he needs to train for the next big game, but Alan insists on taking him to the room where Brian is. The two then enter the classroom. Everyone is completely surprised to see the famous player, especially Brian. Alan then calls the young man over to talk to Kevin. The two greet each other, shaking hands, while the agent watches closely to see if anything strange happens, hoping the talent will transfer back. However, everything remains the same. But Alan insists. He asks Kevin and Brian to spend some time together at the school. Throughout the day, the two become friends, bonding over their love of the game. But Kevin says he needs to get back to the arena to practice before that night's game. Alan, getting desperate, tries one last trick. He announces that he will give Kevin's ninja sneakers to the entire basketball team. They distribute the gifts to the players. Alan then asks Brian to take a picture with the player, with both of them holding the autographed basketball. He hopes this physical contact will bring the young man's talent back to Kevin. But again, nothing happens. Kevin then leaves, frustrated. He says he is tired of Alan's crazy attempts and that he will regain his talent on his own, through hard work. Hours later, Brian plays in another game for the Eagles. Connor, who is free on the court, calls for the ball. However, the young man is now so confident in his own ability that he ignores his teammate. He selfishly dribbles past the entire opposing team and scores a point all on his own. Connor is irritated by his teammate's selfish attitude. He goes to confront Brian in the middle of the game, but Coach Ambrose tells him to calm down and returns him to the bench. Brian is once again the star of the game, scoring all the points. But all this talent and fame begins to make him increasingly arrogant. He even starts hanging out with the popular crowd at school, leaving his best friend, Mitch, and his old group of friends behind. After the game, the whole class gets together for a big party. Brian can't stop talking about himself, bragging about his shots and his points. He even starts ignoring Isabel, who is standing right next to him. The girl doesn't like his new attitude at all and decides to leave the party. When Brian tries to talk to her, the other popular young men pull him back to the party. Suddenly, everyone starts to flee. The father of one of the students has shown up to break up the mess. But it's not apparent. In fact, it's Alan, Kevin's agent. He storms in, pulls Brian out of the pool, and demands that he give Kevin's talent back. The young man doesn't understand what he means. But Alan says he's read everything about him. He explains that before meeting Kevin at the game, Brian wasn't even on the team. Now, he averages 48 points per game, which is the exact same average Kevin had when he was Brian's age. Alan doesn't know how to explain it, but he believes that somehow, the young man stole Kevin's talent and needs to give it back. Finally, the agent gives him some advice. He tells Brian that it's not worth having all this success while Kevin, a good man, loses everything he has achieved with so much hard work. These words hit Brian hard and leave him thoughtful. The next morning, he goes to school, where they are organizing a big event in honor of the Eagles. In the middle of the pep rally, Coach Ambrose announces that after 30 long years, the Eagles team will finally reach the state championship final. He thanks the players for this historic achievement and then begins to call them all up to introduce themselves to the school. Brian waits for his turn, but he sees Isabel in the crowd, heading to the library. He runs after her. He tries to make up with her, but she says she is worried about him. She tells him that all his success in basketball has changed him, and not for the better. However, Brian, still arrogant, says that the two of them only met because of basketball. He says that otherwise, she would not have paid attention to him. Isabel is offended by this. She tells him that from her very first day at school, she already liked Brian for who he was. before the talent. She doesn't like the person he became thanks to the sport. She then leaves, and Brian heads to the court, feeling guilty for pushing Isabel and his friends away. After thinking long and hard, the young man decides to do the right thing. He calls Alan and says he wants to give his basketball talent back to Kevin. The manager immediately takes him to the arena where Kevin is practicing his shots. And as expected, he is missing every single one. Alan takes Brian to the player. He tells them to challenge each other on the court to prove once and for all that Kevin's talent has been passed on to the young man. Kevin accepts. He soon realizes that Brian has not only surpassed him but is also capable of making all of Kevin's most difficult, signature shots. Convinced that the theory is true, Alan tells the two to put their hands around the autographed ball and repeat the exact words they said that day. They obey, but everything remains the same. Kevin is still without his talent. Alan doesn't give up. He tries other ways, like provoking static energy, using magnetic objects, and continuing to hold the autographed ball, but nothing works. Despite everything, Kevin thanks the young man for his help and his honesty. He wishes Brian luck in the next game, and Brian wishes him the same. When night falls, the Thunder game is about to start. Brian goes to Isabel's house to apologize for the way he acted. He also confesses everything. He tells her that he doesn't deserve all the success he's had in the games because he ended up stealing the talent of professional player Kevin Durant. The girl doesn't believe it, but Brian shows her the video recording of the Thunder game, the one with the wrong shot that hit the team mascot. Brian says that before this incident, he was the worst player in school, and now he has become the Eagles' biggest promise. Even with this explanation, Isabel has no idea how one person's talent can be transferred to another. While searching for an answer, Brian watches the recording of the failed shot again, and when he sees the mascot being hit by the ball, he suddenly has an idea. He realizes the sequence of events. The young man then grabs his bike and races to the stadium, where the Thunder are about to play. Kevin is on the court, playing in his worst phase. Minutes later, Brian arrives at the venue and cycles at full speed through the back entrance. The young man manages to get past the security guards and bursts through the iron gate seconds before it closes. Finally, the young man breaks into the stadium and finds Kevin on the bench. He tells him that he has finally discovered the answer to restoring his talent. He remembers that he threw the ball and hit Rumble before talking to Kevin. He sees the mascot, Rumble, nearby. Brian throws the autographed ball again, hitting the mascot hard, who falls to the ground, unconscious. Then, the two shake hands with the autographed ball. This time, Brian suggests they switch their lines. With that, Kevin says, "I would like to have Brian's talent." And the young man replies, "When talent doesn't work for you, you have to work to achieve talent." Thanks to this, a powerful electric spark passes through the ball. Brian sends his basketball talent back to Kevin. The player then heads into the game, and as expected, he turns the score around, scoring several points with his incredible, unbelievable plays. Finally, the real Kevin Durant is back. He secures the Thunder's victory, which makes Brian, watching from the sidelines, very happy. However, Brian knows what this means for him. The next morning, he goes to his backyard. He tries to shoot the ball into the basket and ends up missing, just like he used to. His talent is gone. Back at school, the young man goes to find Mitch and his friends. He apologizes for leaving them out and for his arrogant behavior. The group accepts his apology, happy to have their old friend back. Soon after, Isabel calls Brian over to talk. She says she saw him at the stadium talking to Kevin, and right after, the player regained his talent and won the game. This proved Brian's crazy theory was true. Now that everything has been cleared up, the young couple reconciles. But Brian still has to play in the big final, only now, he has to play without his magical basketball talent. Still, he doesn't intend to let his team down. He decides he will go to the game anyway. Finally, the moment of the big final arrives. The arena is packed. The Eagles take the court, confident in Brian's ability to secure their victory. They don't know the talent is gone. When the game starts, the team begins an offensive play. With the opponent's area surrounded, Connor passes the ball to Brian, expecting him to score the point. However, knowing that he can no longer make the shot, Brian panics and passes the ball back wildly, and it goes out of bounds. This confuses everyone, especially his teammates. Things only get worse when Brian misses another easy shot, and the opposing team starts to open up a big lead. With the first half coming to an end, the score is 47-31. The Eagles are being crushed. In one final play, Connor shoots at the basket, narrowing the score to 47-35. The referee then calls a timeout. In the locker room, Coach Ambrose asks Brian what's going on. The young man tries to cover it up, saying he's just having a bad day. He asks to sit on the bench, telling the coach he'll just disrupt the whole team. However, the coach tells him to stay in the game. He tells Brian to do everything he knows because the team is counting on him to win. The young man then returns to the court with no hope of winning. But when he looks up at the stands, he sees Allen and Kevin Durant. They have come to support him in his game. Seeing his idol once again, Brian becomes motivated. He calls the whole team into a huddle. Although he has no talent for shooting, Brian knows a lot about game tactics from studying Kevin's tapes. He passes on what he has learned to his teammates. He asks them to put aside their individual plays and focus on teamwork. The team, seeing his determination, accepts his advice. They prepare for the last quarter, listening to Brian's commands. In a short time, the Eagles' strategy starts to work. They regain momentum in the game. By passing the ball between all the players, they manage to narrow the score. In addition, Brian does his best to take care of the defense. He isn't scoring, but he is marking players, stealing the ball, and passing it to his teammates. With just a few seconds left in the game, the score is 60-62. The Eagles are down by 2. They recover the ball in what could be the last play of the game. The ball ends up in Brian's hands. Kevin, in the stands, shouts for him to run to the opponent's area and not miss his big chance. Reaching the middle of the court, Brian tries to pass the ball, but the defense is fierce. He is the only player free for a shot. Even so, he passes to Connor, who ends up being marked. The ball is passed back to Brian. With only 4 seconds left in the game, the young man has no other choice. He takes the shot from deep. The buzzer sounds as the ball is in the air. The entire stadium holds its breath. The ball hits the opponent's basket at the last second. The Eagles win the game. Everyone runs towards Brian, who managed to save the team without needing anyone else's talent. Days later, the young man meets Kevin, and they thank each other for all the help. Kevin says the same and invites Brian to practice on the court. Brian accepts, saying he has been practicing a lot at home. In the end, the two players learned a valuable lesson together. Natural talent can be very useful, but nothing beats the value of true effort and hard work. So, what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like the video, like and subscribe to Film Recap for more movie recaps. See you next time.